Hi there, this is Nige. I've just got back from a run, literally. Not a run to the toilet or one of those sneaky things that goes wrong. A run out in nature, engaging in, being with, doing something that I really love to do, occasionally. This is for this coming November's Trans Cafe, which is going to be on the 6th from 7 to 9. And the idea of exploration for the evening, it's all about the meanings in life, the meanings that you make, and how to both recognize when your meanings in life aren't working for you well, to recognize when they are, and also to have some idea of the deliberate and unconscious shaping of the meanings that maybe become part of who you are and you possibly don't want them to be. So one of the things that I love to do, I really do, it's to go out walking. And I was out walking yesterday with a very good friend. And that brings me a lot of happiness, a lot of joy. And it's littered all over, and it really is. It's placed intentionally in a whole bunch of spiritual, religious, how to be happy, psychological books, ideas, etc. Alan Watts might have said it first, but he got it from something much older. The idea of life is to be alive, and that really comes out to being happy doing what you do. Yesterday, I was very happy. Greetings, Joanne. Yesterday, I was very happy out with a really good friend who has had a lot of life experience. They're a worldly wise person, and I really enjoyed the conversations we have. And they were telling me about one of their friends who I think I've met once or twice, who basically had got to a certain level in their career at a well-known firm, not just in the northeast or in the UK, it's probably European as well. And they'd got bored with what they were doing. That equates to me as the meanings in their life had flattened out and there was nothing new or nothing exciting in their work career. So what they chose to do was to take a break from that and to look for something that they really wanted to do to engage in. And they happened to choose teaching, school teaching. So they did that, they packed in their job, they did some school teaching training, which was mostly in the classroom, so I hear. Greetings, other people. I'm new to this, so I'm just trying to keep my attention in two places at once, which I'm all right at. Oh, bless you. Yeah, so they basically swap careers. They learned through teaching, which, from what I remember, was mostly practical. It was in situ on the job, and then a little bit of theory, because, you know, like everyone needs theory to be a teacher, right? Now, part of their training was to go live and to be in the classroom with kids. And surprisingly to them, they found that what they enjoyed doing most was working with what in my day would have been called the problem kids, the trouble kids. What we changed the meaning of now somewhat is to children from disadvantaged backgrounds, families that have had shit luck in their life. You know exactly what that means, and you do. And the way I'm remembering this was, it was two teachers to one student. And once the lesson started, the door was locked, so that student couldn't get out. That probably sets up a bit of a frame. And, you know, that's fascinating. You choose to do like a new career, a new path in life, and then you find out in part of that something you totally didn't expect, and that floats your boat. And so I was continuing, actually, like, well, what about that? And they said, well, what she loves, what she's great at, what she's passionate about, is seeing the good or seeing the potential. Jung would call that intuition function, seeing the potential in a person. And I paused right there, and that reminded me of a story from my first NLP practitioner training. And the way I remember it, it was about a guy called Dr. Pandropos, I'm probably saying that wrong, a Greek guy. And he was a kid, a small child, when there was that whole, you know, like ridiculous loss of life called World War II. Yeah, that one. So there was Germans invading his island, and a German car or a motorbike or something, the mirror on it, it got broken. And he got all the little pieces together as a child, and he tried to put it back together, which might have been setting a metaphor for his life then. He couldn't put them all back together. This is his story. He couldn't put them all back together. So he picked up one, and over a period, I don't know, of weeks, of months, or who knows, on bits of stone, whatever he could find, he started shaping that until he had a disc, a little circular disc. And in his own words, he says something, this became a metaphor for my life throughout his life, his developing life, that he used to take that disc and into the dark places, he would shine that. So Greece is a fairly sunny island. It's not like old Blighty here. So there's probably a lot of sunlight. But he was on about, metaphorically and literally, to shine light into dark places. So him, who became the famous Dr. Pandropos, my friend's friend, who is an exceptional what she's doing teacher, have found a meaning that's potentially come out of a part of being stale in your life, if you like, where you've got bored, or equally where the meanings that you're making in your life, they just ain't good enough, and you deserve to be happy, do you not? There was a person, and you probably know who I mean, who died for that. He died for the meanings in his life. That's Mr. McGandhi, that passive protester who helped change the fate of a nation. I don't think what happened after that was his idea. What he did do was something about it now, and it's now o'clock. And he died for his dreams. And there's some story that when he was shot, assassinated, the last things he said was Ram Ram. That was the living of his God through him. And there's another myth that his pocket watch, it was given to him by someone famous, stopped at the exact moment he was shot to record for all posterity and in perpetuity that event. Now that's probably not true, yet it does convey something of importance. So what Dr. Pandropos or Pandadropos, sorry dude, what he did was he found a way to bring together and help heal people of the horrendous fucking rifts and hates and potentially generational, which go on today now, you can see that all around. Generational rifts that were caused by people fighting each other, that were caused by, who knows, you could go on forever to do the cause. So the idea of shifting and changing the meaning is being able to recognise, and this is no easy task, both your conscious and your unconscious meanings that are formed through thoughts, the stories you tell yourself, the stories other people will tell you, the news, the politicians, the media, all of that have their own agendas, and being able to recognise that. And what I want to do in the Trans Cafe is show at least one way, and this comes from a hell of a study of how, let's say, those Renyardish fake news shows are attempting to, my words, mass manipulate and divide people, where, at least from my perspective, and I hope yours too, this is the idea of meanings. A meaning is relational. It doesn't happen in just one person. It really doesn't. I'm going to go into that in a little bit of detail with some stuff from Bates and from Bertrand Russell, blah, blah, blah. That's just the conscious mind stuff. You need the conscious mind stuff to jump yourself out of the paradox of trapped meanings. Now, they found a meaning which was to help to bring human beings together. Human beings like each and every one of us, in ways where we can get on and coexist. That's part and aspect of it. And someone who you may not have heard of, I've read a little bit by, called Herbert Spencer, one of his little, I think, pithy quotes is, no one can be totally happy until everyone's happy. So working on the you being happy is a start. That's that wee quote from Mr. Gandhi about be the change you want to see in the world, or something like that. And what Pandropos did through the works of his life was to bring people together. And that story comes from, he was given a lecture somewhere, and someone asked him, what's the meaning of life? Which is, like, potentially one of those jokey questions. He took it seriously, and that is the story he told through my neurology about finding a mirror, using it as a metaphor to shine light into the dark places. And he also said that he wasn't the light, he wasn't the dark place, he's just there to reflect it back. Just like what my friend's friend does when she's working with those kids from disadvantaged backgrounds who, if you think about the slightly bigger picture, a bigger meaning, that certainly isn't the children's fault, really isn't the parents' fault, it isn't their parents' parents' fault, But what we can do now is a parable to Mr. Gandhi's watch, is say, okay, stop now. What can you do? What can I do? What can we do? And I know lots of you are already engaged in this type of work. What can you do to help people have genuine meaning in their life? Genuine, that's meaningful. And maybe that wave of ripple of joy, happiness is going to spread out. Remember, optimists live longer than pessimists, except when they don't. So hopefully I will see you at the Trans Cafe, which is going to be November the 6th, 7 till 9, and that and this will go on the Trans Cafe website for the Newcastle NLP and Hypnosis Practice Group. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a great day. Bye.